It was 6:45 in the morning, and Rosa Delgado was pushing her cleaning supplies cart down the hallway in the same way she had done for 22 years, silently, carefully, as if she were walking through someone else's house. She didn't know that, in Operating Room 4, her son was about to save a child's life. She didn't know that, in 20 minutes, her entire world would change in front of the whole hospital staff. All she knew was that Mrs. Victoria Ashford, owner of St. Mercy General, the woman, whose name was carved in marble in the main lobby, was walking briskly toward her heels clicking on the floor like a countdown. "You," Victoria said, without even looking up from her phone. "Couldn't you wait? You're disrupting my entire team." Rosa stopped, gripping the cart handle tightly. "I'm sorry, ma'am. There's been an accident. I didn't want anyone to slip before surgery." "This hallway is for professionals," Victoria snapped, finally raising her eyes. They were cold, the kind of coldness that comes from never having to ask anything of anyone. "Get out of here, now!" A young nurse nearby lowered her head, pretending to consult a clipboard. No one said a word. No one ever did when Victoria Ashford spoke like that. Rosa nodded, as she always did, and pulled the cart aside. "Of course, ma'am." She had learned long ago that some battles weren't worth fighting in front of others. She had a son to think about, a future to protect. Even if that future no longer needed her, protection, not in the same way as before. In Operating Room 4, Dr. Daniel Delgado adjusted his gloves and looked at the monitor above the operating table. A 7-year-old boy named Mateo lay under the lights, his small chest rising and falling with the help of a ventilator. A congenital heart defect. Dangerous. The kind of surgery that only a few surgeons in the country would dare to perform. Daniel was one of them. At 34, he was already known as the most talented cardiothoracic surgeon St. Mercy had ever hired. Patients asked for him by name. Residents studied his technique as if it were sacred scripture. Even Victoria Ashford, despite all her composure, knew it was best not to interfere in Dr. Delgado's operating room. What she didn't know, what almost no one in the hospital knew, was that the woman she had just humiliated in the hallway was his mother. "Scalpel," Daniel said in a low voice, and the room fell into the usual silence of a team that fully trusted each other. 2 hours and 40 minutes later, Mateo's heart was beating steadily on its own. Daniel exhaled, moving away from the table as the anesthesiologist began the wake-up protocol. "Great job, everyone," he said. "We'll help him recover." As he removed his gloves, a nurse leaned toward him. "Dr. Delgado, there was a situation in the East Corridor before the surgery. Mrs. Ashford asked one of the cleaning staff to leave. It seemed quite serious." Daniel's jaw clenched. "Which cleaning? Crew?" "An older lady. Rosa, I think that was her name." Daniel's hands remained motionless. To understand what happened next, it's necessary to understand who Rosa Delgado really was. She had arrived in Chicago from Guatemala 30 years earlier, with nothing but a suitcase and a 5-year-old son. Her husband had died in a construction accident before they even left home, and Rosa had vowed to herself, standing over his grave, that her son would never know the poverty that had consumed his father completely. She accepted the only job she could find, cleaning. First in offices, then in a nursing home, and finally, 22 years ago, at St. Mercy General Hospital. She worked nights so she could pick Daniel up from school during the day. She worked double shifts during his high school years to pay for his SAT prep course. When he got into college on a partial scholarship, she took a second job cleaning a dental office on weekends to cover the rest. When he was accepted into medical school, the proudest day of her life. Even with financial help, they still needed almost $40,000 a year. Rosa never told him how she covered up the situation. She simply did it. She even skipped meals for a few weeks. She wore the same 3 uniforms for a decade. She refused all offers of new furniture, all small comforts, because every dollar she saved went into an envelope marked, in her careful handwriting, with Daniel's future. She never complained. She never told him. It was difficult. "Focus on becoming a doctor," she used to tell him. "Let me worry about everything else." And so it was. And now, 15 years later, the boy she raised alone in a 1-bedroom apartment above a laundromat was the most respected surgeon at one of Illinois's largest hospitals, and his mother was still pushing a cleaning cart through the hallways, unnoticed, invisible, disrespected by the building's owner herself. Rosa never told anyone at the hospital that Dr. Delgado was her son. Not because she was ashamed, never, but because she didn't want anyone to treat her differently. And she certainly didn't want anyone to treat her differently. Differently because of her. She wanted him to be respected for his ability, not to be pitied or praised because of his background. She kept her secret for 2 years, until today. Victoria Ashford was not a woman who let go of an irritation easily. The day after the incident in the hallway, Rosa's supervisor called her into a small office near the loading dock. "Rosa, I need to talk to you about your schedule," the supervisor said, avoiding her gaze. "We're restructuring the cleaning shifts. Starting next week, you'll be working the night shift. Alone." Rosa blinked. "Alone? In the entire West Wing?" "It's temporary," said the supervisor, although they both knew it wasn't. Rosa nodded and went back to work, as she always did. But over the next 2 weeks, small things continued to happen. Her locker was moved to a smaller one, in another building. Her working hours were reduced without prior notice. A formal complaint appeared in her file, filed by Victoria Ashford herself, alleging unprofessional conduct for the incident in the hallway, even though Rosa had done nothing more than try to avoid an accident before the surgery. It was clear to all the employees, although no one dared to say it aloud, Victoria Ashford wanted Rosa out. What no one at the hospital knew was that Victoria had her own deeply buried reasons. A woman who had inherited wealth and status but had never built anything for herself, who felt threatened by anyone whose worth didn't come from a bank account. Rosa's quiet dignity, her refusal to humiliate herself, her calm eyes that never wavered in fear. All of this disturbed Victoria in an inexplicable way, and so she did what people like her often do. She tried to make the discomfort disappear by making the person disappear. Daniel found out about the review 3 weeks later, purely by chance, when he overheard 2 nurses talking in the break room. "They're really targeting that cleaning lady, Rosa," one of them said. "Poor thing. She's been here longer than half the doctors." Daniel put down his coffee cup. "Rosa? Rosa Delgado?" The nurse looked at him strangely. "Do you know her?" Daniel didn't answer. He was already walking towards the Human Resources office. That evening, the hospital held its annual Excellence Gala Dinner, a charitable event that brought together donors, board members, and the local press, held in the grand atrium beneath the hospital's imposing glass roof. Victoria Ashford always used the event to remind everyone who was in charge at St. Mercy General. She was on the podium, wearing a sapphire blue dress, in the middle of a speech about the values that built this hospital. When Daniel Delgado walked to the front of the room, still in his white coat, and asked if he could say a few words, Victoria hesitated. It wasn't part of the program, but With the cameras rolling and the management watching, she couldn't gracefully refuse the hospital's most renowned surgeon. "Thank you, Mrs. Ashford," said Daniel, taking the microphone. His voice was calm, but there was something about it that silenced the room. "I want to tell you a story about someone in this hospital. Someone most of you have passed by 1,000 times without knowing their name." He looked at the crowd and then gently asked someone who was near the catering staff to come closer. Rosa froze. She hadn't planned on going to the gala. She'd only gone to help arrange the chairs in exchange for extra pay. But Daniel's eyes met hers, warm and steady, and he simply said, "Mom, please, come stay here with me." A wave of confusion swept through the crowd. "Mother?" Rosa walked slowly forward, still wearing her cleaning uniform under her coat, her hands trembling as she reached the small stage. Daniel took her hand. "This woman," he said, "raised me alone after my father died. She cleaned offices during the day and dental clinics on weekends so I could go to college. She went without food so I could pay for medical school. Every night I studied, she was also awake. Not studying, but working. So I never had to worry about money like she did." He paused, his voice breaking. 3 weeks ago, she was humiliated in a hallway of this hospital for trying to prevent a leak before I went into the operating room to save the life of a 7-year-old boy. Since then, she has been quietly sidelined. Her working hours have been reduced, her locker has been moved, and a complaint has been filed against her for the crime of caring about patient safety. Exclamations of astonishment were heard in the room. The cameras turned to Victoria Ashford, whose face had paled. "I only got this far," Daniel continued, turning to his mother, "because that woman never gave up on me. Not once. Not even when we had nothing. Not even when people looked at us the way some people look at her. Now," he turned to the crowd, "anyone who doesn't respect every employee of this hospital, every nurse, every janitor, every person who keeps these corridors running, hasn't yet learned the true meaning of this profession. We don't heal people from a position of superiority. We heal because we understand what it means to fight, to sacrifice, to have hope." The atrium erupted in applause. The board members rose to their feet. Nurses who had worked alongside Rosa for years wiped away tears. Finally, understanding the silent strength they had ignored for so long. Victoria Ashford stood frozen on the podium, her carefully constructed image crumbling before the cameras she herself had invited. The following week, the hospital board launched a formal investigation. Victoria's complaint against Rosa was dismissed and filed away. Furthermore, the board began questioning other decisions made by Victoria. Decisions that, one by one, revealed a pattern of dismissive treatment of staff as she sought to enhance her own public image. Within 2 months, Victoria Ashford relinquished the day-to-day operations of St. Mercy General, remaining only as a silent shareholder. The hospital, under new management, created the Delgado Legacy Fund, a scholarship for the children of hospital support staff, janitors, cafeteria workers, security guards, anyone whose quiet work kept the hospital running, but whose children might never otherwise have the opportunity to attend college. Rosa received a promotion offered to head of environmental services with a significant salary increase. She almost refused. Old habits die hard, until Daniel held her hands and said the words she had repeated to him 1,000 times during their childhood. "Let me handle this, Mom. You've already worried enough about the two of us." She still walks the halls of St. Mercy General today, not in a horse-drawn carriage, but with a name tag that says Director of Environmental Services, and with a serene dignity that no title ever conferred upon her, because she had always possessed it. A message for you. If this story moved you, if it reminded you of a mother, a grandmother, a discreet person in your life who gave everything and asked for nothing in return, take a moment before you leave. Write a word of support for Rosa in the comments below. Somewhere, someone reading this is doing exactly what she did, working in silence, sacrificing without recognition, believing that love manifests itself in actions, not in applause. Let them know that we see them too.
For the unseen workers who serve with dignity, bringing hope and shared humanity to us all.
Good morning, everyone. Ready for the day?
Let's do this.